Good morning. Welcome to the Virginia School of Traditional Arts. Today we're going to be making a leather mask or a leather sheath for our Norlund little hand axe, our double bit hand axe. This is the original sheath, and we're going to go through the steps of making a modern version of this. This one is still functional, I guess, but it's been I don't like the way it's made. Right here it is just two layers of leather sewn together. Well, of course that lends itself to being cut apart. It doesn't have a piece of webbing in here to keep it from the axe cutting the actual stitches. So we're gonna modify this a little bit when we make a new one. Do it a little bit differently. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. We've got our axe more or less finished. We still haven't sharpened it. I'm gonna wait till the end to sharpen it, but other than sharpening it, it's cleaned up. Our handle's been oiled, got a little beeswax on it, and we've cleaned up the rust off of the head, and it's reasonably sharp at this moment, especially this side. But we're going to use our original sheath here to make a new sheath. I've got some leather. I'm hoping this is going to be close. Yeah, it's going to be close to make us a new sheath. And so all I'm going to do is copy the old one, and I'm going to make it just slightly bigger than this old one, and I think that will be perfect. I am going to add something to this. This has just been sewn together, two pieces of leather sewn together. I'm going to put a whelp in my new one. That way the blade won't cut the threads, just like you would make a knife sheath. I'm going to put a whelp in this. And what I may do, instead of sewing across this top, I may just fold this over and make this one piece. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to turn my paper this way, and I'm going to allow for my little snaps here, and I may make these slightly longer than what's here, but we'll just go with what we got here. And I'm going to come over, I'm looking at this side, I'm leaving an extra 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to get this straight as I can. I'm going to put an extra 1/4 of an inch on this side. And then I'm just going to give me that allowance. That'll let me have a little extra to work with. Like that. I'm going to keep this pretty close to what it is. That. Alright, we may refine that a little bit, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to walk this thing over and give myself a little bit extra up here, because if we're going to add a whelp, it's going to add material. So I've held it pretty close here, and I've added a little bit up here on this flat side. And so then all I'm going to do is take my square, and we're just going to true up these measurements. This mark. And square this direction as well. Make sure I'm looking square on it. I love to square off a piece of paper sometimes, especially a long way. Alright, there you go. And so that's going to be my pattern. And unlike this one, it's not going to be sewn across the top, it'll be folded across the top. But I think that will work. And what I'm going to do next is cut this out. To make these match, I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to cut up this line, fold it in half, and I'll cut out one of these pictures. Okay, after much struggle, we have got our piece. I always change blades and put a new blade in this, mainly because if your project's not worth a new blade, you probably shouldn't be working on it. And I'm going to cut using a straight edge so I get it as straight as I can. Alright. And a new blade just cuts like butter. So we're just going to keep working our way around this. Right. Straight line across here. Alright, right up in this corner it's giving me a little trouble. And it went. And so that is our piece at the moment. Always put your knife up because it'll cut your leather and scratch it up. I'm not going to cut this just yet until we get it figured out where we want it to be. And then we'll put a mark and cut it. Our first step was that we just took this original one and we drew a paper pattern just by doing this. And we cut it out. And this paper pattern is slightly bigger than what we had originally, and we can always cut it down if we decide to. But I made it a little bigger because we're going to actually fold this one over. We're going to save sewing this top edge by doing that. We're going to add in an extra piece of leather here so that we don't cut our threads, our stitches, and we're going to put some D-rings on the back. And that will allow us to mount this to our backpack or to a saddle or whatever conveyance you may want that you need your axe readily available. Your snaps will be here. You can pop it open and pull your axe out the bottom. But we'll have it so that we can hook it on to something else. And I'm thinking about even putting some belt loops with that attachment so that you can put it on your belt as well. So we have some belt loops and a couple D-rings on the back. Next step was we took our pattern and we cut out our leather. And again, we cut it using this pattern, so it's pretty exact. We did not cut it to length yet. I've still not decided on what length how tight we want to make this. Our pattern has still got some pretty good play in it. We'll show you. If we do our pattern here, it still has some play with it acts up and down, but that changes with a piece of paper versus a piece of leather. Especially when it's bent, it may need that extra room to fit correctly. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to square off this top corner, and I'm going to make a couple of strips out of this for our D-ring in our belt loops. So I'm going to take this is what I'm using to cut on. It's just a piece of soft wood, and I'm using my square. Move all this stuff out the way, and I'm going to square off of this side here to get me a straight line. Get me a straight line here. That first piece is just scrap. Now I need my D-rings so I can see how big of a piece to make. Get a hold of one of them. And I'm going to use my little scrap here. I think just the very end of that would be acceptable. For our D-ring, it's still a little loose. So we'll mark one. Let's see what our D-ring is. Our outside measurement is 3/4, I'm pretty sure. So I dropped it over here. Our outside measurement is 3/4. Our inside measurement, what we're going to cut, is about, I would say 9/16 or thereabouts. This won't fit in it. I was trying to find something that was about the right thickness to trace, but I guess we're not going to do it that way. So I'm going to again square off the edge, making sure we got it good and square. We're going to look at this closely, make sure we got a big enough piece. I think I'm going to go just a hair bigger. And what I may do is make it full width. Let's do it that way. We'll make it full width, and we'll just notch out around that dude. We'll just use this as a measuring guide. We're making it full width. Do that again. And I like using this same piece of leather because when we dye it, it'll be identical. There won't be any discrepancies in it. Get our leather to line up. And you could use a strap cutting jig for this, for sure. It'll probably be a little more accurate. But for something small like this, I think this will do. And so we've got our two straps here. And And we may refine those slightly, but they'll match this way. Alright. And we're down here closer to our marks that we had on our pattern anyway. Alright, so there's our straps. Now these are too fat just to stick this in, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little, punch a hole here and here and fold this over, and then I'll sew the bottom and the top to the back, and that will be our belt loop as well. So all this will be one. I'll have to sew one time here and one time at the bottom. Alright, so that looks good. Now we're going to determine our axe. What I might do is draw us a line on this because it's difficult to see. Where our actual axe should sit. These points is what I'm looking for, where this folds up. And I don't want them to be so tight that that's going to cut my leather. See, when we fold that up, I don't want that to be so tight that it cuts. So I'm going to pull it up just a little bit. Fold this over. And look where that line is. And I'm going to say it's a little shorter than what I had initially thought, which we're going to make it mark here. We'll give it a little more room, maybe like that. So we're going to try cutting that mark. Again, using our square as a guide. Fold that a little bit, and I'll check it again. I think we'll be alright there. Yeah, we'll be fine there. That's what we're looking for. And then this will fold over this way, like that. There we go. Alright. And now we're going to cut us some strips to make our piece here, like that. And so we'll cut a strip out of this. And this could be anything. We're just going to use the same piece that we have here, but this could literally be any piece of leather. You need to be relatively thick, but most any piece of leather will do. Go. Cut the last little bit of that a little crooked, so I'm going to cut another strip. That same size. Alrighty, and so these will go in here. mark them about like that. Like that. And then we'll cut those marks. And now we're just going to lay this all together and make sure that our axe is going to fit in here with a little extra play, because it has to have a pretty good thickness on it. And we're just going to pinch it together. There you go. The axe fits in there, plenty of room. And push those down. That's about right. Might need to shorten those just a smidge. See them sticking out right there? Both sides, just a quarter of an inch. Better to be too long than too short though, for sure. Too long's easy fix. Too short means you start over. So we're just going to cut off that much. That much. Make that square it up because I cut it crooked. Cut it crooked the other way, but that's alright. We got them. And I'm going to put that where it's got, I'm leaving a little hole at the top. Right there. If we want to, we can thread a rope through that and have an extra attachment if we would choose to. But I'm going to leave that open right there. It's also good if it gets wet or what have you, you can get the water, some of the water out. Alright. And what the water's going to do is going to help me fold this. So I'm just going to put it right through here where I want it to fold. And that'll help me fold it. And I'm going to put some right here where I want it to fold as well. Give it just a minute or two to operate here. Kind of mash it down a little bit. Make sure it's lining up on the edges. And you could skive this down if you chose. I'm not going to do all that. I may have to skive on this side some because these are such abrupt turns, but I'm going to try not to. I'm going to leave it full width leather so it's strong as I can keep it. Let's see if we can do this so that it will fold up and be straight on the edge. Alright, I'm just mashing that down good so this thing is locking in as best I can. Alright. And when we get it folded up, we're going to look at our geometry, making sure that these two pieces are looking similar. They don't have to look perfect, but they need to look the same height is what I'd like them to look. And this one looks a little bit short compared to this one, so I'm going to cut this one off Just a smidge. Just a smidge. I use my straight edge to do that. Doesn't need much, just a tiny bit. And you wouldn't have to do that, I just try to keep it looking right. Alright, that's looking better. Looking better. Okay, now what I'm going to do to locate my snaps, I'm going to use the bottom snap, and I'm just going to put it on here so I can see that it's centered. Like that. And I'm going to take my awl and I'm going to push it straight on through. And that'll mark the pieces of leather for me. And I'm going to use it and measure, try to make them look the same. Here. So that, if you can see those two little marks and two little marks, that's marked where I want to put the snaps. Now I'm going to wait till the very end to put these on, but I'm gonna have to put these on this side first before I do much other, at least punch the holes for it, because I'm going to have to dye this and glue it together and sew it. And so I won't be able to get to those snaps. So I'm going to put those on right now, or punch the holes for them. Alright. Right here to go through there and not wiggle around a whole lot. That one's wiggling a little tiny bit, but I think that's the one. Yeah, I think that's the one. Doesn't move much. So we're going to use that punch. Sure we're seeing it. We're going to use that punch. We're going to set our punch and cover up that hole. We're going to take our flat bottom, put it in here, snap. Oh, God, right here I don't need. Okay, so we've got our piece of metal here that comes with our snap setting rig, and we're going to really hit this on this. I'm afraid of breaking my stone with that, so I'm not going to hit this so hard. Alright, and so we've got our snap on there good. The way you know it's good is you can't spin it. So we're going to do that again. Get another one of the flat ones. There's a flat one. Another one of the insides. Set it down on a piece of metal. A tool. Can't spin it. I'm gonna give another lick. Okay. Now at this point we're gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna dye it. The reason we're gonna let that dry is because if we dye it with that water in it, it's gonna discolor on those spots. When we get it all together, we'll take and mash this in, and we'll punch the holes to make them match those specific snaps. But at this point we can just let it dry. We can also prepare our straps. So our straps are going to need the D-rings. And here's our D-ring. And I'm going to switch to the biggest hole punch I have. My little set here. And these are kind of tapered, and that's okay. I kind of made them match to start with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over like that, and I'm going to sew it across here straight. But I want this D-ring to fit in here, and so to do that I'm going to have to mark it and punch a hole in it. So that's what I'm going to do. Set that in there. I'm going to take and hold it up in there where I want it, and I'm going to punch a hole that the edge of the hole is right there on that. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but right there coming out this way. And so we'll show you what that looks like. Flung my pieces of my snap in the floor, but I'll get that in a minute. Got to find my hole puncher punch. And what I'm going to do is set that. I'm going to turn it so y'all can see it maybe. I'm going to set the side of my hole, and I'm going to punch right on the edge of that line. Right on the edge of that line. We're going to punch a hole. We're going to come here on this side as straight away as from it as I can. And we're going to punch another hole. We'll take our knife and just cut that hole straight out to the side. I tried to make it look a little neater than that. So we got that. And find my D-ring again. And just check it. And what we'll do is we'll pinch this part together and send the D-ring through. And then that's what we end up with. Something where that D-ring is on there, but we still have plenty here to sew to. We might make 2 lines there because that's going to hold a whole lot. 2 lines of stitching, and our D-ring is still there. And then we'll measure this and cut it off. We may make a decorative end on this to stitch around too, but that'll be our belt loop in there too, our belt piece. Alright, so we need to make another one of those. And we'd like them to match, so we'll just use this one as a pattern. Make sure our notches are looking right. Sometimes you gotta lean this strap cutter to make it cut all the way around, but that's close. So there's our two pieces like that. And I may wet these two because these got to turn around hard as well. And again, you could skive those, but I'm trying not to. I want to leave this as fat as possible, much leather there as possible, so it's strong. So I'm just putting a little water on those. Again, I'll fold them over and tap them with my smoothest hammer I have, at least at the moment. And then we're going to go hang out somewhere for a little while. Let's cut. Even as it could be. Alright. And I'm going to tap these down. So they'll lay down flat as I can get them. And then I'm going to put this knife up. I always put my knife up because whenever you got a good piece that you want to keep, inevitably that's what you'll cut. You'll cut it, scratch it, do something to it. And so that's what we're after. We're after something that's going to look like that. It's going to sew across up here at the top. And it's going to sew across maybe like a little bit down here, a little horseshoe shape or fingernail shape. And that should give us plenty of support to either hang it on our D-rings or on our belt loop. And the oil dye, we're going to use professional oil dye. This one is called English Bridal. This is readily available. Tandy's, Weaver Leather, all those carry this. I buy it in actually a big container, and just I bought one little container. It's cheaper to buy it in a quart. Anyhow, anything that we're going to be gluing, we're not going to dye, so we're going to put a little mark on this because we're going to glue this. And we'll probably just not dye right about there. Something like that. So we're not going to dye inside here. We're not going to dye this little lip, but we will dye the rest of it because we're going to glue that. We're not going to dye down this edge either, but we will dye the rest of this, and that's the only parts that we need to dye at this point. These little pieces are going to be on the inside edge. We're not going to dye those at all. So we've got our pieces. And our leather is dry. We let it dry for a few hours, and just to make sure that it colors well. Like I said, we're going to leave a little bit of this undyed too. I'm going to put me a lines on it so I know what I'm doing. Because the glue doesn't glue as well if it's dyed. I'm going to start on this bigger piece. Make sure my surface is more or less clean. I'm not going to worry about the edges as much, mainly because we're going to go back, we'll sand this all up smooth and everything, and we'll go back and have to do the edge work later. But I am going to do a little dyeing inside here. You don't have to do this, but it'll show if you don't when you're taking your axe in and out. So we're just going to go along here and do this quickly. And not all of it, but just a straight line. And the same goes here. We're just going to make us a straight line. And do a little bit on the edge down here. Because we don't want to show that. We sand it off. And where there's hardware, we wipe it a little bit. And this doesn't have to be perfect inside here because it's just going to show a little bit when you open this, but we just don't want it to be raggedy looking. On this side. And I try to do this fairly liberally on the front side here so that it'll work its way out to being a smooth finish. The hardware makes it a little more difficult to work around, but basically long strokes as you can. And you could have left the hardware off and done this section and put the hardware on later, but if you do that, then your piece is soft with the dye. You got to wait again to put the hardware on. So I'm going to just turn this around. And I'm going to do a little more on this edge because I missed a spot on that edge too. And I'm probably going to dye this twice, so anything I missed the first go around, I'll get it the second go. And I use a lot of dye, because a lot of dye is what it takes when you're soaking up raw leather here. And then we're going to do our next pieces and let this thing dry for a little while and see what we got. I'll set that aside. right. And I will do the edges on this pieces because I'm not going to be able to do them later very much. And I'm going to do this bottom edge. That won't change. And I'm going to do these edges on the little flaps. They may change a little bit when we sand, but not a whole lot. We'll just do it again if need be. But I just did the edges around here and this bottom edge. Alright, there's our dyeing done for this. And we're going to let this thing dry a little while. And then we'll glue her together. Keep from getting dye on my hand. And I'm going to stick this in here. And we'll go back over and we'll wipe this again just to make sure we're getting it off of the hardware. And we're going to cramp this back down. While it's still moist from the dye, we'll keep it back down like this so that it retains its shape more or less. Alright, that's all for right now. We're going to come back, glue her together, punch her holes for stitching along the side here. Won't be too much stitching in this. We'll have holes along this one side, and we'll have on the on this side we'll have holes. We'll have to sew first here and here, and same on this side, here and here, and that'll give us our D-rings and our snaps then on this side. Alright, we'll let that dry. Alright, first thing we're going to do is put our D-rings on. And the way we do that is we squish this together and push it down like that. Alright, do both of them. Squish that down. So the straight part of the D-ring is inside the fold. That's the only thing you can do wrong is spin that around, and it won't look right. It won't act right either. Alright. Second thing is we got some choices. This is going to be the outside. This will be what you see. Our D-rings is what I've been telling about, is we're going to put these on the side opposite of the snaps, and they will allow a belt to go through there. We'll sew here and here so the belt can fit through there, and these D-rings, we can use those to tie onto a saddle or your backpack or what have you. Now, I've been studying on this. If I'm going to tie this on my saddle or on my backpack, the handle will be sticking down like this, and that's probably okay. However, if the snaps were to come undone, especially like a horse moving around or catch a brush or something, and they come undone, my axe will drop out. So what I'm thinking about doing is switching it. Still be the same idea. Still be the same idea, except the D-rings, when you're tying it on a saddle or your backpack, your handle will be up. And you could even tie the handle to it as well through the same D-rings with the same piece of cordage. And that way it would, if the snaps happen to come loose, it's still in your scabbard and tied by the handle. I think that would be better. And if you're putting this on your belt, then it would ride like this. The D-rings would be down and out of your way. You know, if it's on your side or what have you, it'd be out of your way. So you wouldn't be brushing the D-rings with your hand every time you moved. I don't think they'd bother anything down there. The other thing is, initially I'd planned on maybe putting these, lining them up with the snaps. And I would do that to protect them from the axe. But the more I thought about that, if we do that and they're this far apart, you know, this axe is not going to bend to fit your body, so it's going to be that far apart, a straight line. I don't think that's going to suit our needs. So I'm thinking about bringing them in even to the even distance here, of course, but probably closer in. And so when we're putting our belt on, it's only like this much distance, whatever that is, 4 inches, 3 inches, to run your belt through, and then these ends will be proud of your side, your belt. But I'm thinking about that, thinking about doing that. So we're going to set up to do that. Got to do a little measuring. Need something to measure with. Use our telephone. There's a straight edge. Let's see how far down I can come. And what I'm doing is I'm putting little scratches in this. And that's where my glue is going to go. Where those little scratches are. I don't know if y'all can see that or not. We'll take this one. Lay it in here straight. See the far side. Alright, so there's our scratches. We're just going to basically connect the dots here. Connect the dots. And then to make this glue better, we're going to scratch up the hair side of the leather. We did this before on the other pieces, but I'm going to do it on these pieces too. Trying to be careful not to get out of past our lines. We don't want to scratch up what we're going to see. So right there's that looks like. And we're going to put this back on here, and we're just going to draw us a line here. And the same with this one. All I'm doing is kind of holding my finger where I want it to stop. Alright. Before I glue this, I'm going to put a little tan coat is the name of this. I'll put just a little bit of this on this where I'm not gluing, I hope. I put a little bit much on the glued part. I may have to wait for that to dry. But basically this is a sealer for the inside of the leather, and this will be exposed to my belts. And so I want it sealed. Trying to control it on this one a little better. And do it on the edge a little bit. And we'll do that on the inside of the whole piece. But we can wait till after we get our sewing done. This is going to get sewn on and we'll not have access to this again, so we needed to do that now. We let it soak in and then we'll get rid of it. Just soon not have that on the front. It can go on the front, and we may put some on the front later, but I just soon not now have little spots or anything. So we're gonna get that off. Alright, so now the next step is we're gonna put a little glue under here. here. We'll scratch this up too, since we just tan coated it. This flesh side of the leather usually don't need scratching much, but we'll scratch a little bit, just especially since we dyed on this one. Okay, so here's our can of stuff. This is rubber cement. This is barge rubber cement. It's supposed to be some of the best you can buy. And basically with rubber cement, you put a little bit on and then you wait for it to dry. And the trick with this is a little bit. Gotta get my ducks in a row here to get this on. Getting it all over. It wants to come running down the handle here. Alright. So we're going to do this one right there. This one right where we put the marks that we're trying. Without getting it everywhere else that we don't want it. And this stuff stinks pretty good, so be in a well ventilated area with this. Alright, before I put the top on, I'm going to wipe this can off so not to glue my top down. And if you glue the top down, she is a bear to get off. Alright, it's been about 7 or 8 minutes. The first step is I'm going to shut these and mash these down. You only get one go at this, so you got to do this the first time. So we got this one. We're trying to get them straight and in line and all that. Push them down good. Alright, we're going to line these up. Like I say, you only get one shot at this, so we gotta do it well. Want that pushed down well. Line that up. Line that up. Try to make them look the same. I just barely touched that one, so I'm able to slide it up a hair. What I want to do. Alright. We got that on there. And that should look pretty even. Probably just a smidge that way. That's alright. And that's what it's going to look like from the front side, and that will be okay. Alright, next step is we're going to punch some holes in this and go sew this. Before we do anything else, we've got to sew these pieces on and punch the holes before we get this sewn together on the sides. Otherwise, you won't be able to get in here to sew. So we've got to punch this when it's open like this. And we wet formed it a little bit with our water and our dye even, and so it's not wanting to lay open flat anymore, but that's okay. We're going to work around that. We're going to use our punching surface here. It's just a punch block, and we've got to make sure we're in the picture. So we're just kind of using the hole in our table as a escape pad, and we're going to put this in here. Punch it through, and we're going to use something flat and smooth to hold that down when we pull it back out. We'll just use because you want to hold that down when you pull that back out. So we're going to do this one the same way. We're going to get them as straight as we can. Try to get them in the same place as we can. Alright. Slide our block on up a little bit. And I'm feeling for basically as high up as I figure I can get a stitch without cutting through the underneath part here. Trying to keep it straight. Trying to keep them consistent looking. That's what we want with our threads, our stitches. And we're going to run 2 rows across the top, and we'll run just a couple extras at the bottom with a different punching awl or stitching thing here. I'm going to make sure I'm getting it where I need it to be. Scratch mark on these. I figure it needs to be. I just picked it up and looked sideways at it so I could get where my edge was. So that I could punch the holes in the right place. That's our holes up to that point, and we'll switch ends. And we're back down here, and I'm just going to guess where the center is, more or less. And I'm going to make like a V shape or a triangle shape. Just a can. And with one this only has 2 prongs on it. So you don't have to drive it near as hard. It comes out easier as well. Alright, well that's our holes we've got punched, and we'll go sew this up real quick. Alright, just quickly we're going to put some tan coat on this inside. I've got it sewn on the back. Got your saddle stitches, and so I'm just going to put some tan coat on the inside of this and let it dry tonight, and tomorrow we'll glue these little pieces in like that, and sew up the sides. We're not going to put tan coat where we're going to put our glue. Try not to anyway. And the tan coat just seals up the flesh side of the leather, they call it, which is what was next to the inside of the animal. And you can actually use it on the outside too, but we'll use something else. Well, this will be the last time we see the inside of this, so this is is what we want to get done. And so I'm going to take a rag, let that dry just a minute. Take this little bit of a rag here and just wipe off the excess, sort of speed it up drying. That dry tonight and glue it up tomorrow. Alright, we've let our leather dry overnight. Pick out our two matching pieces here, right here. And we're going to glue these in. And the way I'm going to glue them in is I'm going to line them up on this corner and then just glue it to one side, and then we'll glue the other side in a few minutes. So it'll hold open for us. All right. So I'm gonna lay this thing up here. Alright. And again, just using this to measure with how far up, basically. Thinner on this glue, but I don't have any. Alright. Alright, we'll let that dry just a few minutes and we'll stick that together. Alright, it's been just a few minutes. We're going to try to work one side of this at a time, so I'm going to lay this just scrap piece of leather in here on one side of the other so that I don't have to worry about hitting that side and getting it stuck in the wrong place. And then once we have that one down, take out our leather here. And squish it down really good. Alright. In the placement of these, I'm going to put one here and one here, I think. That'll keep the stress off of this. On our original, they had rivets as well and stitching. They had 3. This is much thinner leather than I'm using, and so the rivets are way tiny. But they had put some rivets in there too. I don't know if we'll need 3, but we'll see about that. But we'll put 2 at some at each corner, I think. 1 at each corner. So and what I'm looking at is this little piece that we've stuck in there. I want to get it in the center of that. And pretty much as close to the edge as I feel I can. And then I'll twist that out. And these have 2 different sides, so we're going to put the pretty side out. This is the front of our item here. And then we'll put this side on. And I may have to shorten these. This one's sticking proud just a little bit. But just to punch the holes, I won't worry about that. I'll show you how to shorten them if we need to do that. And I have lost my tool to tighten these. These have a special little screwdriver, but most people have these nowadays. They're like a star kind of screwdriver. Alright, so that's that one. And the next one is to be over here, and we'll try to make those look even. That's the goal with any of this stuff, is to make it look nice as well as functional. Functional will work whether it looks nice or not, but we would like it to be beautiful as well as functional. You're driving through 3 pieces of leather, it's hard to get it out. My hands are hurting today. Daggone it. I'll get us a little help. She tight. Tight. So those are looking close. Looking close. Then we're going to come up here to the top. Try to get it lined up on the center again. What we think. stitching. And punch. Alright, not bad for eyeball work. I didn't measure any of that. We could have, but not necessary for something like this. Hard to get these little things started. Got too big of fingers today. Alright, so there's our Chicago screws in there. And now I'm going to put a little groove on this. Should have done that first probably. Truth be told, probably should have done this part first. But this is just a little grooving tool. It doesn't actually put a groove, it's just a scored line. But I'm going to put it between these two. If I'd have done this first, it'd been easier to line them up. But there's our little line. Do the same thing on this side. And this has just helped me keep my stitching line straight. And when you have a long straight stitching line, of course use the longest, straightest pricking iron you have. Makes life a lot easier. to tell in this light, but I might just need one more stitch. Yep, probably just need one more stitch, so we'll just do this one. Just do this one. And so there is our stitching holes. They don't go all the way through. They go almost all the way through. I take my little pricking iron, or my little awl that I've been using to scratch with, and I poke the hole all the way through then, and then I stitch it. But we'll go stitch that up, and we're almost done. We got to put the snaps on, and we'll be almost done. And shorten these Chicago screws slightly. I'll show you how to do that, and put a little glue on them, and they'll be done. But that'll be our mask for our double bit hatchet. Alright, I just removed our Chicago screws from our project here, our axe sheath. And my trouble with them is they're too long. The screw part itself, there we can see them maybe. The screw part itself is shorter by a significant amount than the barrel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put the barrel through a piece of scrap leather and take it over to my sander, and I'm going to sand it down. A piece of scrap leather. Here it is. I just got a hole punched in this, and what I'll do is I'll just take the barrel part, not the screw, take the barrel part and stick it through there, and then that gives me something to hold on my sander, and I can even push it around like that so I can hold it good. And I'll sand this down maybe 1/8 of an inch. And I'll do 4 of those and we'll come back. Alright, I've shortened up the barrels by sanding them. I've run the screw back in the threads to make sure that this is going to be okay. And we're going to start and place this in here. The barrels. Alright, this is the good side, so that's why I'm putting the good smooth looking side to this. This is the front. This is the back. And as you can see, I've got them down in here a little bit. The threads on these others, it only goes in there so far, so if you had to shorten it and more, you could shorten the threads, but I think we'll be alright. I've got a little bit of super glue here, and I'm going to squirt a little bit on a piece of paper, and I'm going to use that just to dip our end of our threads in just a little bit. And we're going to do quickly. Quickly, he says. We'll dip that in there, and then we're going to place that in the hole and thread it up tight as we can. And what the super glue is going to do, hopefully, is going to glue the threads together once they get down in there. And you don't want to get the super glue on your leather. That's not going to do your leather pieces any good. Alright, so there's our Chicago screws in. I'm going to toss this so we don't get this all over. Only thing left, well, there's a couple things left. We need to sand the edges and dye them. We need to put our snaps on. I think we're going to work on that next. Our snaps, and we'll sand up the edges and dye those, and that'll be it. And then we're going to seal the outside with something. We can use the tan coat, or we could use Canava cream. We could use lots of different stuff. We'll see what we got, and we'll pick out the most robust thing since this is for outdoors. Alright, the way I'm going to do the little flap here is I'm going to lay it up here and lay it on this, and I'm going to hit it with something. Let's see what I got to hit it with. Scratches. I'm going to hit it with this, and that's going to put us a mark right there. I don't know if y'all can see it. We're going to do that again on this side, get this thing up snug. And that'll give us where we want to punch our holes for our snaps. That'll be the next thing. We're done stitching, so we're going to put this part back. Put up our glue so that doesn't get in our way. Stitching piece back out. And our little snaps. Now this we want the pretty side and the big end. Get that. There's a big end. And there we go. What we have on this side, on the back side, it looks flat, not this pretty shiny part. And this is the little side, and this is the side that bites that. So you got to know what your pieces are. So we'll lay those out. And now we're gonna look at this dude real close. And figure out where to punch this hole. Lighting in here could be a little better. And I don't generally punch the holes from the flesh side out, but this almost have to because it's where it's marked. Okay, so we've got our holes punched. We'll get this on. We have to find our this part here. This has divots in it that holds your round part of your head so it don't crush it down. Alright. Move this around. So that spreads it around. It's like a hollow in there. We want to make this, be sure that's tight enough it's not going to spin. We don't want it spinning. Alright, there we go. Looks good. it's not spinning on us. And so there's our snaps. Alright, snap good. And I'm going to sand this edge up slightly, just a little bit, and we'll dye that. And then we just got our top finish on it. It'll be good. Alright, I just got a billet sander over there, and we just hit that a little bit on the edge just to true up everything. It was pretty close already, so we didn't change it a whole lot. We will go ahead and dye that though. Get the cardboard out here. Just to make it blend in with the rust. And there was a little piece in there that didn't get dyed. Since I already touched this part, I'll just go right ahead and do this whole deal again. So it doesn't have a little spot, it'll be at least be the same. Alrighty. Take us a rag and just wipe off the excess. There's no more on there. We may need color again on it just to make sure it's there. Wipe that off. Alright. Now we have choices on what to put on the outside. I put tan coat on the inside, and that's good. And we can do that same thing with the outside if we choose to. Let's see what else I have. Here's Canava cream. I like this. This works very well. Kind of makes it soft a little bit. So we'll take us a rag. Put some on the rag. And just rub it in. It gives it a good sheen. It cleans up all your marks and stuff you may have put on them. Makes it feel good in the hand. And it protects it. Protects it some. Waterproofs it a little bit. And you can add this over and over again if it need be. I'm going to put some out here on that. And on the sides. And over time you may have to add this again. You can also put, I make a homemade beeswax and walnut oil that I've used for the handle of this axe. That also will do good on the leather if that's what you have. No need to buy stuff you don't have. But there's our little axe sheath, or some people call it a mask. Depends on who you're talking to, but that will do you. And again, we put our D hooks on here, so when we're attaching this to a saddle or to a backpack, we'll have the handle up, and we can also just we'll have a string in this handle anyway. We'll throw that around something too to keep it from flopping. But when we're wearing this on our pants, on our belt loop, we'll wear it to where this is down. Just make sure it all fit together. That would be silly, no, and it doesn't fit in there. We got it in, all done. Just new and stiff a little bit, but that fits in there very nicely. Doesn't shake around a whole lot. So there you go. And I put my stamp on there. I didn't show that. If you've got it, doing a lot of leather work, you ought to invest in your stamp. Mine says Fox Ridge Arms, that's my company, and then my signature. But a lot of people have a symbol they'll use.